Hey, good to see you again. A warm welcome back to Heroes Behind the Badge, where we tell real stories about real cops. We expose the fake news about the police, and we give you the real truth. This podcast is brought to you by Citizens Behind the Badge, the leading voice of the American people in support of the men and women of law enforcement. For more information about how you could get involved and add your voice and support to the men and women of law enforcement, it's citizensbehindthebadge.org. Hi, I'm your host. I'm Dennis Collins. I'm a founding director of Citizens Behind the Badge and a proud law enforcement father. As always, my two colleagues join us today. Bill Erfurth, better known as Billy to some of his friends and even some of his enemies. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, and just want to remind everyone to make sure that you click online and you like and subscribe and follow so that when these podcasts hit the air, you'll be the first to know.
You know, that's a good point, Billy. What I have found is that there's a lot of people listening, but they're not subscribing or they're not following the channel. So, and they don't rate it or review it. So it really makes a big impact on Citizens Behind the Badge and Heroes Behind the Badge. So please, when you subscribe or you follow, it tells the platform, hey, this is something that people like. So please do us that favor. By the way, Bill is a retired Miami-Dade police lieutenant, 26 years of decorated service, and he is also a founding director of Citizens Behind the Badge. And now say hello to our fearless leader, Craig Floyd. Craig is the founder, president, and CEO of Citizens Behind the Badge. You probably know Craig as the founding CEO emeritus of the National Law Enforcement Memorial and Police Museum in Washington, D.C. Craig, thanks for founding this wonderful organization. Thanks for being here today. Good to see you.
Oh, it's going to be a great day, Dennis. As you may have noted, I have my special hat on. This is a police unity tour hat that I wear proudly on special occasions like this. I also have right behind me a painting that was presented to me by the Unity Tour over the years. I've known our guest now close to 30 years, and it's an incredible story, and I can't wait to share it with our listeners and our viewers.
I agree. Well, with no further ado, let me introduce our guest. First of all, a little background. It was 1997, and Pat Montuore, a member of the Florham Park Police Department in New Jersey, he wanted to raise public awareness about law enforcement officers who have died in the line of duty. He created the Police Unity Tour. His idea was simple: organize a bicycle ride from New Jersey to Washington, D.C., the Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, to ensure that officers who have died in the line of duty are never forgotten. They ride for those who died. The original tour, 18 riders. Today, coming up in Police Week, May 2025, there'll be over 2,000 riders who ride to remember the fallen. When the riders get to the memorial, they're greeted by friends, family, and survivors. That they fundraise throughout the year for the Unity Tour, and it's ultimately donated to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. Pat retired in 2015 as chief of police of the Florham community, but he continues to lead the Police Unity Tour. Pat, a warm welcome to Heroes Behind the Badge. A thank you for all you have done to support law enforcement. A quick personal note, there's nothing more thrilling on the day that the Police Unity Riders arrive at the memorial site in Washington, D.C., to see thousands and thousands of people riding into the memorial site. I've seen it a number of times. It never, ever, ever ceases to give me chills. So again, thank you for all you do, and welcome to Heroes Behind the Badge.
It's such an honor. It's such an honor to be surrounded towards, gentlemen like yourselves, as well as a very close friend, Craig Floyd, for many, many years. As he said, we've been, together for over 30 years now. And it's been such an honor and such a journey to make sure that we remember our fallen, but not just remember some, remember them all, from the memorial to our museum.
For sure. Well, Craig and Billy have a bunch of questions they'd like to ask you. I'll turn it over to Craig and fire away, Craig.
For starters, I just wanted to show a plaque that I cherish. I have a few plaques here in my collection, but none more important than this. This designated me back in 2004. Wow, we're getting old. As a life member of the Police Unity Tour. And I display this very proudly, and I'm proud to display it here for our viewers and listeners. Um, Before we talk about the Police Unity Tour, and I have some great stories about how it all started and how Pat and I got together many years ago. Bill, I know you were curious about Pat's background, and I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, let's start there, Pat. And interesting thing, and Craig certainly knows you for 30 years, and you guys have had some very memorable times together. Great fundraising that went on. But let's start with things that I don't know about you. And let's talk about how you got into law enforcement. What was your position? What were you doing at the time, actually? And then how did this actually manifest itself? Where did this idea of the Police Unity Tour come from?
Well, it's funny you asked this question like this. I had the opportunity 2 Sundays ago to be in front of the Atlantic County and Cape May County 200 Club to be able to speak about this particular topic.
Right.
Who I was, what motivated the Unity Tour, and it's pretty simple. Things are people would say not by accident. I've had been very lucky in life to be surrounded around the most amazing people in my life. From the very beginning, I wanted to become a police officer, watching my uncle, who was an Essex County police officer, come to my house in his uniform to see my grandmother, who we lived with. We grew up in Orange, New Jersey, right in the area where it's a melting pot between Newark, East Orange, Irvington, the larger city areas in the Essex County district of New Jersey. I had such a appeal towards law enforcement and justice from a very early age, wanting to be involved in it. Although my father was, a auto mechanic, auto body mechanic, repairing vehicles, who he wanted me to follow in his footsteps, and I kept pushing towards becoming a law enforcement officer. And one of the challenges that I had very early on, which was really important to me just to mention now, is that I had dyslexia. And, obviously that could be a major issue when it comes to numbers and the ability for you to perform your job in a professional way, and being concerned about being able to do what you need to do. And when, someone said you had something called dyslexia, like, thank God for, again, like I said, the people that I've been surrounded around and in my life. A fourth grade teacher, it helped me, and to this very day, I basically owe it all to a woman by the name of Mrs. Cosgrove, from my school, who basically took the time to make sure she gave me the extra assistance and help to be a part, of the community of education, rather than trying to fall behind. And from that point on, I was able to learn and be a part of something to get past that disability, and to see maybe in the future become somebody like a law enforcement officer. I had the opportunity to be involved with Essex County Public Safety for a year after I graduated high school. Very quickly went into law enforcement. My uncle from Essex County was able to help me get involved in that. And then very shortly thereafter, there was, politically layoffs and things coming up. And all of a sudden reality came to me, thinking like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And how am I going to get there? I found Florham Park, New Jersey by mistake. And then I ended up being there. And then, just like anything else, the people that surrounded me in that community was a lot different than where I grew up, where people were very apprehensive and cautious around certain people and issues or concerns, thinking that someone was always going to do something to harm you, or there was always going to be a reason to make sure that you were guarded. I went to a community where, if you're directing traffic, people from the community brought you out donuts and iced tea. And the quick story to that is one time I just get hired. I graduate from the police academy. I'm on top of the world. I feel like this is my home. Amazing, wonderful people. You're not hearing sirens all night from like when we're in the city or where I previously was. you're experiencing life the way you would want to experience life in a beautiful community of, citizens that want to be a part of the safety and well-being. So I'm sitting directing traffic, and Craig will remember, Ridgedale Avenue and Columbia Turnpike, a major county roads, and I'm sitting there directing traffic and waving at people, or beeping at you, not to yell at you, beeping at you to wave to you. And all of a sudden, this woman comes out and brings me out a little box and brings me out a plastic container, igloo container, and she says, "Here you go." And it's 80 degrees out, maybe not too crazy. Then as soon as she leaves, I get rid of the donuts and I empty out the iced tea, thinking that it's, who's going to leave that? I don't know this person.
Yeah, it's tainted or
And
something.
then all of a sudden, when I went into work, people are asking me, "Hey, did you get dropped off the donuts?" And I mean, like, people were saying, "Well, that's normal behavior here." So I'm saying to myself, what an amazing community that opened up their arms, and I wanted to be so a part of it. So at that point in time in my life, I made a big, quick decision, and that was to be involved in the community, to be involved in the church, to be involved in anything I could be involved in that community, to make it my home, so the people there would realize I really wanted to be there. I really wanted to be a part of the police department. I wanted to make a difference. And, along that journey, I started educating myself about the community I was in and understanding what was going on around me. I found out that we lost officers, and all of a sudden, like, who were they? I remember going out and talking to other officers on my job, and they would bring up, I got hired right after, Robert Houtman and Frank Daly, died. And I'm like, well, who are they? And, then I started, realizing that, and educating myself and trying to find more about them. So the answer to my background is I was very, very lucky to be surrounded towards people who cared directly for me and were a part of my life. And they helped me reach my full potential, not only in the very beginning of my career, all the way through. It would be remiss not to mention the people I worked with. Uh, I was very lucky in life to find, this career. And I said it at my retirement, if Craig would remember, as he was there, I said I would do this career all over again for free if I was given the longevity and the time to do it. Because my experience, not every day was great, but most of my career of being surrounded towards amazing people willing to put on a badge and a gun and also acknowledge that they could not come home that night, I believe is the greatest gift that you could give to anyone or be around. So I chose to put myself in that community. I chose to become a brother and a sister to my fellow law enforcement officers, not only in my agency, but all the agencies that surrounded me. And I really wanted to be one of those individuals making a difference, not only by arrests, but by community actions and involvement.
But let's talk about how you just, go ahead, Greg. Go for it.
I was just going to say, Bill, first of all, I don't know that you ever told me any stories about you getting donuts and juice from your community there in Miami-Dade. I think that may not have happened down there, right?
We usually would get rocked and bottled or something like that.
Well, they're different kind of treats, yes. Now, I just wanted to add to it. I mean, this is a neat part of the story, and it's pure coincidence, right? My wife, Veronica, grew up in Florham Park, New Jersey, right? And so I go up there every year at Christmas. My in-laws have since passed, and I don't make that trip anymore. But for many years, I went up there at Christmas and spent a week or so. And this one year, it was 1996, December, and I got a call from a guy named Jerry Mantone, who was a lieutenant in Madison, New Jersey. Jerry was a good friend. He had helped build the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, and I knew him well. So he said, Craig, there's this guy that wants to meet you, and he wants to help with the memorial fund. And I said, sure, let's have lunch. And we did. And it was, of course, Pat Montuore, who walks in with Jerry. And we had a wonderful lunch. And he told me about this idea he had. He appreciated the memorial so much and what it stood for that he wanted to be a part of it. And he said, I'd love to organize a bicycle ride down to Washington, D.C., end it at the memorial, but we'll ride 200, 300 miles from New Jersey. And we'll raise money and awareness about our fallen officers and help the memorial fund. And, I left that meeting Like I had so many of these people that wanted to help, and it's a wonderful thing. Everybody loves the memorial. But I was a little suspect. I wasn't sure that anybody could organize a bicycle ride for 300 miles from New Jersey to Washington. And I kind of let it go and figured maybe I'd never hear from Pat again. But sure enough, May of 1997, Pat comes down to the memorial after riding 300 miles with 18 riders. And that was the beginning of the Police Unity Tour in 1997. So, Pat, you have a saying. You did an amazing thing organizing this ride, and it's grown so much. Tell our listeners and viewers about the growth from 18 riders in 1997 to what the Unity Tour has become today.
Again, it's a hard to believe kind of story for me. No matter if I'm traveling somewhere along the line, somebody will say over the past, 29 years, hey, I'm in the Unity Tour. People say, you'll meet people, and this is like so hard to believe for me that, an idea that you had actually touched people not only in this country, but in multiple countries, and has independent, Police Unity Tour rides riding in other countries. So when we first got there and with our 18 riders, we never thought that this was going to be an annual event, by the way. I just want to make that very, very clear, because a lot of people on the first ride, I don't know if Craig will remember, they said, lose my number. Because basically what I did, just like Craig said, I had no idea how to run this thing. All I did was have heart, my head, and my will to want to do something, not demonstrate, not with a sign, something silent, something beautiful, something amazing to remember our brothers and sisters who died. And that's the only thing we wanted to do. But the problem was I went to AAA in my own community right in Hanover Road, and I said, how do I get from New Jersey to Washington, D.C.? So they gave me a trip ticket. So basically, I kind of looked through it a little bit and figured out what would be the best ride through there, which really wasn't. It was a lot of hills and a lot of craziness. Hence, when we arrived in Washington, everybody was saying 2 days before we arrived there, saying, hey, lose my number. This is quite difficult. But then when we drove past the Capitol and you took a look over your right shoulder and you saw that beautiful dome, and then you're just passing Constitution Avenue and your heart's starting to race. And then you start going closer and closer to where we call home, which is our National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial site. And as soon as we got to the site itself, it's hard to explain. It's almost like I'm home, welcome home, and, as Harry Phillips, our executive director, says so beautifully, they're saying, welcome home. All the brothers and sisters are on that wall. And, our ride had a lot of tradition to it. It had us educating our riders, who they're riding for, contacting their survivors, taking the bracelet that we had made up for us to give to those individuals, saying that they rode those 300 miles with us. And then we also carried $1, which still goes on to this very day. This dollar represents the token or the donation from the officer on the wall. We carried their donation, which they would have been on a bicycle if they could have, but they were, because they rode alongside and on our heart and in our chest and in our heads and everywhere we could possibly be when it was tough going up a hill, when the weather was just trying, when your emotions got ahead of you and you felt so, overwhelmed by what you were trying to accomplish, and that there were so many odds in some cases against you when you're not a person who rides a bicycle every single day. And this takes just more background. The Unity Tour takes all year long for that officer to be a part of it. They have to be educated through many meetings. They have to be trained. We have to make sure that they're safe and that they're wearing all the proper gear. And it's not just get on a bicycle and drive. This organization, like I said, is surrounded towards the most amazing presidents of all our 9 chapters, delegates, representation of our ride marshals, our safety, our motorcycles. We are a city, small city, going across 4 states and 1 district. with ambulances and all different types of things that, we need to make so we don't deplete the resources of our brothers and sisters along our ride. We mess up traffic enough. We want to make sure that we don't mess up the emotion of what we're trying to accomplish. We're not trying to hang a sign on our bike saying, hey, we're against one person or another. We're against this, what someone may say. We're not against anything. All we're for is making sure we remember our fallen and we let our citizens know that we serve them and we serve them with honor, and want to make sure that they realize that we do it with dignity and respect. And we make mistakes. We're human beings. And that's one of the reasons why I believe it grew from 18 riders to 2,000 riders, from an $18,000 donation annually to a $2.2 million donation annually, to over $40 million total for our purse that we've given to the National Law Enforcement Memorial and Museum. So did I realize that this was going to go from 18 to 2,000 riders, to be from here to Germany, to Italy, to Israel, to other countries? No. But what I never questioned was the honor and dignity of everybody that was around me, that they showed this true, valiant honor and unbelievable amount of care and responsibility to be a part of the tour. No matter what promotion I go to for somebody or event from another agency, you know what they write on their resume? Member of the Police Unity Tour. Member for 5 years, 7 years. They don't only just say they were a member once. They say they want to let everybody know that they were members for years, because to get that jersey on you, you have to earn it. To get that blue and white jacket that we call our uniform, you have to earn it. You have to be a part of it. You have to understand what we're trying to do. It's not just about riding that bicycle. It's about educating not only the communities and states we go through, but educating everybody on that bicycle about their own agency, who suffered and sacrificed themselves for them and their community, so they there can educate others, so they're not forgotten, especially historicals, as Craig did an amazing job for many, many years, making sure for those who died, not in the active years, but in the previous historical years, dating back to the 1700s. Those individuals are not forgotten. And that's a plug that I always bring back when I speak about Craig, was his idea to make sure that our research department was very thorough, that we were the depository in the memorial to make sure that those names would never be forgotten and investigated. So like I said, the Unity Tour grew from 18 to 2,100, but we did it as a partnership, a true partnership with the memorial over the past 29, 30 years.
So Pat, you guys, essentially, you ride for those that have died. And I'm not sure if we've hit on it yet, but it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't each officer carry something that represents who they are personally representing that has died in the line of duty, and talk about that?
Yeah, every rider that comes on the tour, if they select a specific officer or we give them an officer, it'll be on a bracelet. And, those bracelets are engraved with the end of watch, the agency, and the location of where they're going to be engraved on the wall, or were already engraved on the wall. And they're all given to the officers that ride on the tour, and they are to educate themselves regarding that officer, what took place, the story, and to also contact, if they can, the survivors, and if they're willing, to meet us when we arrive in Washington, so we could let them know how much we cared and respected their loved one, and that we want to make sure that we let them know that they were a part of what we're trying to accomplish. And that's their stories to be told, their memories to be continual, but their duty never to be forgotten.
At the end of each police week, the Memorial Fund staff and the museum staff go to the memorial wall where people have left mementos, thousands of them. The walls literally come alive, I like to say, during National Police Week, where people remind you that these are more than just names and numbers. These are families that have been ripped apart by the loss of a loved one, but they're truly treasured, the memories, and truly honored. Pat, interestingly, you were talking there, and I had so many thoughts that came to mind. Number one, I just wanted to make sure everybody saw a photograph of the two officers that were really helpful in getting the Unity Tour off the ground. That's Detective Frank Daly and Patrolman Robert Houtman. They died in 1975 in a plane crash. They were on a reconnaissance mission looking for marijuana fields when their plane experienced mechanical problems and they crashed and died. So those were the beginning. But there was something else when you were talking. You were talking about how when you arrive at the memorial and how you've raised $40 million to support the memorial fund. And I've said to some of my closest friends, I've said, there was a survivor once who told me that, Craig, I'm so glad that you remain strong during our various ceremonies during National Police Week and throughout the year, the candlelight vigil especially. She said, if you break down, we're all going to crumble because we're counting on you for some strength. And yet I tell people that the only time I've ever lost it really and could not speak because my emotions got the best of me was a couple of years when the Police Unity Tour arrived in Washington at the memorial, and I watched these riders come in. Their knees, many of them had fallen. They were bleeding. They were clearly exhausted from the trip. But when they arrived at the memorial, it just the looks on their faces, it just meant so much to them. And then you presented me with checks for, I don't know, it started out with $18,000, 1,000 for each of the riders. And like you said, it increased every year. And I think the first year it got to be $600,000, $1 million. I just lost it. I mean, I could not speak. The fact that these men and women were doing so much to support the memorial, and it meant so much to them that it truly touched me and affected me in a good way. And I'll always remember those moments. Tell me about something that extraordinary really happened. You expanded the Police Unity Tour to Israel. And I happened to be on that first trip with you, and I think it's continued over the years. Help me, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's an amazing thing that the police in Israel and the police here in the United States of America have really found a bond thanks to the Police Unity Tour. How did that come about?
It's the most unique thing, you know. We have um, a member, Mike Safras, who goes back and forth to Israel, is a deputy sheriff here in New Jersey with the Essex County Sheriff's Department. And for many years, he was going back and forth, and he was talking about this ride, and he had asked for, well, he had Israeli Border Patrol and other police officers come visit him during this time, and they were in Washington, and they saw us come in, and they wanted to be involved, and then somehow we were able to communicate, and we did, and they came with us, and it was probably around, I would say, 2000. And I don't know, 10 would be the first year that they came. And then as they started to come, more and more riders wanted to come. And then we started sending contingents over to Israel as they were honoring our fallen. We wanted to honor their fallen. And also they wanted to show what they did for us for 9/11, because a lot of us here in the New Jersey and New York area were rescue workers during 9/11 and realized they sacrificed not only of those who died on that very tragic day, but those who suffer illnesses thereafter and continue to be put on the wall. So they wanted to, and of their own money, they over a couple $1 million made a monument and a memorial in Israel for our 9/11 rescue workers, as well as those for the future names to go on. And what's very unique that year, if I may say something personal, Craig was on our first inaugural ride. It was so important for us to go over because we were going to, for the first time, be on the soil in Israel and ride our bicycles for those who died, whether it was the police or the IDF or the military or Border Patrol, whoever it was in Israel. We wanted to do the same that they've been doing for us for many years by coming to our country and honoring our fallen. We wanted to reciprocate and do something beautiful. And we did so. We traveled out there in 2015, the year that I was retiring. During that period of time, we scheduled a bicycle ride and also many, many types of events that were going to be going on during a period of 10 days. During that time frame, I suffered a massive heart attack and almost died in the desert of Ofakim. And I was saved by the gentleman by the name of Igal Lutz. And Igal came with us from the very beginning and happened to be there. And if he didn't carry me out of the desert and get me into a Humvee and get me to a hospital, I probably wouldn't be sitting on this podcast with you, amazing gentlemen, being able to talk about the wonderful things the Police Unity Tour does and what the memorial means to us all. He gave me a second chance. I changed my whole life after that. I became more responsive to the little things and realizing that, I could do more and why am I here? And, I was so thankful for that opportunity. So when I said nothing's ever by accident in life, nothing is. The growth of this organization, us going to, Israel or other countries, England, who has their own ride, but more so in a personal aspect where I fell in Ofakim was about 8.5 kilometers from where Jesus was born. I was next to the only tree that the only way I could describe where I fell, we were riding bicycles in a desert that everybody thinks like this soft dust. It's not soft dust. It's like rock hard. It's not like, you can't jump out of a plane like you see on TV and fall into the sand and be okay. You fall to that, it's like falling on concrete. So when I had my heart attack, I rolled on my side and I'm looking to the left, northeast of me. And I'm looking up and I see this tree. It's kind of deformed, sort of like making a right-hand turn. I don't know what it was, but it was growing maybe only 10 feet tall. And it was the same tree that the thorns that were in Jesus's head. And that's the tree that when I came back to show my wife where I fell and being thankful that I am alive in 2021, I buried a heart next to that tree, explaining why I couldn't bury it because it was concrete sand. So I put stones over it. And Igal asked me, he says, what if someone takes it or picks it up or takes those stones away? And I says, God bless them. I hope they do. I hope they get the same gift I've been given, the opportunity to be around all of you and the opportunity to be able to have a say in the world that I believe and love so much. And that's the law enforcement community and the emergency services community. But unfortunately,
let me add one thing to that story, Pat. In typical male fashion, Pat was refusing medical aid that day. He said, I feel fine. I'll be fine. No problem. And if anybody had listened to him, he wouldn't be with us here today. But that's a typical guy's response to a pretty crisis situation. And none of us want to admit when we have some medical issues. Let's talk about memorable moments in the ride. I mean, you've been doing it now for, I guess this is your close to your 28th, 29th year of riding. I'll share one quick memory I have. I usually ride the first 20 or 30 miles in the old days with the Police Unity Tour just to kick it off and get me pumped up for National Police Week and all the ceremonies that are about to occur, because it really does touch you. And so it's right after 9/11, and we wanted to go to Ground Zero, where 71 officers died in the line of duty when the terrorists attacked back on 9/11, 2001. And we had closed off, I say we, the police, in their amazing ability, closed off the Holland Tunnel to get us from New Jersey into New York. To Ground Zero. And there's a lot of angry motorists probably that are still angry to this day, but they closed it off so that hundreds of bicyclists, police officers, survivors of the fallen could ride their bikes into Ground Zero. And as I was entering Holland Tunnel to get to Ground Zero, I made a typical rookie mistake and I ran over a grate that flattened my tire on my bike. And here I am. I don't know how long the Holland Tunnel is, but it seemed endless. I'm riding my bike with a flat tire. I was the last to arrive at Ground Zero, but it was one of the most moving ceremonies I've ever experienced, to be there while they were still doing the recovery work, and finding remnants of bodies and the smell I'll never forget. But we had an amazing ceremony there of remembrance. And Pat, I know you probably have a few memories like that that stand out in your mind over these last 30 years. Could you share a couple of them with us?
You know, like I said, we brought other people from other countries. And, Craig was talking about being in New York, going through them. The tunnel was probably one of the most amazing things that it's 1.5 miles in, 1.5 miles out. 3 miles. I've had the opportunity of doing it a couple of times and even running through it there after September 11th, 2001. But we had motorcycles from Italy, and how everybody wants to trade patches and trade uniform things off your uniform. So we are getting close to Washington D.C. Somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, we have a little bit of a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" He says, "Well, the Italian officers don't have their dress uniforms any longer." I said, "Well, what happened to them?" And nobody had an answer. So of course, at the end of the day, I grabbed the motor officers and I say, "Hey, what happened to your stuff?" And they said, "New York." And I said, "What, they steal it?" They go, "No, we gave it away. I got a patch." Like he got a patch. He gave away a $400, dress blouse for the officers on the screen. Here, you would say to yourself, you can't give that stuff away. I was one of them. They gave me one, which was nice. But, that year, uh, everybody was in their dress blouses, but they were wearing their blue and white Unity Tour jackets because they weren't able to ride, with their uniforms on because they gave them away. And, the things that happen on the tour are every year there's something amazing that happens in my mind that is always memorable.
Flagman and the school kids. I love that story.
Say that again.
Flagman and the school children along the way. I mean, to me, that was one of the greatest things that these
Oh
kids come
God,
out and
yeah. Scott Haig actually went to the police academy with them. We call him Batman. It's
his
his
name.
nickname. And everybody calls him, the kids call him Flagman. He gives out 5,000 flags to every kid. It's the most amazing thing. If someone would tell me that people hate police officers, I would tell you that's a lie. That's media driven. That's individual aspects or momentary issues that go on around our country that a law enforcement may be involved in, and it may be negative. When I travel through 4 states and 1 district, I watch people slap pots and pans together. This young man, Scott Hay, going from one side of the road to the other, giving out flags, high-fiving children, teachers from schools that are coming out and waving. The most important thing for everybody to realize from this podcast, and they're asking me what I believe, and I believe that we are all together. The citizens, law enforcement, emergency responders, we see it when the chips are down, especially like September 11th or whatever goes on in our world. People care about us. However, sometimes we're all misinformed about what truly goes on during some of these incidences. That's why, they go left or people want to make us look bad. So that's one of the things that I've always seen going on the ride that makes me feel really special. Makes me feel like these individual groups of people that come out, they understand who we are. We're going over a bridge. It's so beautiful. It looks like a sea of blue. And then all of a sudden at the end of the bridge, there's people there. How did they get there? I don't know. They're sitting there slinging pots and pans, big 4x8 sheets of plywood. They write things on it. We love you, remember this, or they put the number of where their loved one is on the wall. It's just the emotion that drives people through, and the stories. There's no rank on this tour. We could have a director of the FBI or the DEA or any of the federal agencies or any of the local municipal, county, and state law enforcement entities. There's no rank. You could be a 1-year patrolman talking to the director. We want that to happen. Like I said, it's not a demonstration. To me, the greatest thing is that we are not here to hold up signs saying, here we are. And I want to say something that I don't want to be disrespectful. Anybody can take a check and mail it or drive it to the person they're going to give it to. but not everybody is going to be showing you who they really are. The Unity Tour shows you who law enforcement really is through weather, through emotion, through physical duress, through just the point of where you don't know if you could make it or not, and you rely upon your partner to the left, the right, the front, and behind you. The miraculous things I see is that. I watch a rider pointing out a hole so the person behind him or in front of him doesn't go into it. I have someone pulling off to the side to make sure that they help push somebody up a hill that you want to succeed, that has tried so hard, lost 35 pounds to be on this ride, to be a part of what they feel to be the greatest thing in their career. And that's, you know, like I said earlier, it's on everybody's resume. Why? Because it's real, it's believable, it's honest, and it's true. And the greatest thing, Craig, to think about it is that I have the opportunity to be a part of it. I may be the CEO and founder, but I am one spoke that creates 46 spokes in that wheel to make it be sound, appropriate, true, and right. I couldn't do this without the people, Harry Phillips, Timmy Quinn, hundreds of people, Gil Curtis, Tina and John Ganser, hundreds of people. I don't want to just mention names, but I want to tell you that everybody I've been surrounding around myself around has been nothing but the best of the best in law enforcement, and being thankful to be a part of their lives, to me, is the greatest gift God could give me.
So, Pat, just a couple of quick follow-up questions from what you were just describing. So the first one would be, so all these people come out and you say they're banging the pots and pans together and the plywood signs and whatnot. Do they know you're coming because you take the exact same route on the same date every year? Number one question. Is that how they know you're coming? And the second,
in some cases, yes. In some cases, yes. Like anything else, the world has they're always spending money on road construction. So we get detoured in the last minutes. We have to get permits for the streets. We have to make sure that there's porta johns in the areas where we take breaks. And thank God for Target as a sponsor. We use their locations as a part of our stops, which we stop every 25 miles to make sure that we regroup and make sure that our riders are together and check out their physical and mental status. So, yes, the people along the route eventually know we're coming. They don't know exactly. Sometimes, we may deviate from those road areas, depending upon, whether they're going to be milling a street or they're going to be putting in any type of other street work going on. But mostly we try to take relatively the same routes. We permit them out, and when we do so, that also alerts the community and letting them know that we're going to be coming through. And the other thing is that, like I said earlier, we try not to task the agencies that we go through. Some towns are very small populace with law enforcement, not like huge 1,000 members. Some of them may have only 25, 30 officers, and they may only be allowed to have one. When we come through with thousands of riders, that's wow, and we don't want to create a detriment. So we coordinate with them. So again, by us coordinating with those smaller entities, those communities, put it out to their citizens to let them know we're coming through so that they can detour and have the ability to go to work. Because unfortunately, we've stopped weddings sometimes for a little while. People getting ready to go to school as teachers. And sometimes these are wonderful notes I received there after the ride. And we hope that, we're able to send something back. And 90% of the time, we're the people that we upset them in that way. They, at the end of whatever they write us, they always say, "We understand what you're trying to do. I just wanted to be heard." And for those who are listening on for this podcast, who that has been a part of their life each May as we travel through their communities, I want to say thank you for your patience. And I want to say thank you for being a part of the opportunity to see a ride that honors our fallen, and we'll never forget the 24,000 plus names that are on that wall.
Exactly. So the other part of the question here is, you hit on it briefly about what does each rider bring. So is each rider responsible for bringing in the funds? Each person individually goes out and raises money on behalf of the whole group?
Yeah, each rider raises $2,100. We guarantee $1,000 to the memorial each year. The other is the cost to get that rider there, insurances and everything else to make sure that they're safe, the food and all the things necessary for that rider to get to Washington D.C. We raised in the last couple of years each year around 2.1 million to 2.3 million to staying above the north of 2 million as we've been raising over the last 8-9 years now.
So Craig.
Amazing. I mean, I told you about how it affects me when I see these checks. I mean, who gives you a check for over $2 million every year for the last 10 or so years? It's totally incredible. One of the things, and we'll close it out here with a couple quick questions. But first, I want you to tell everybody, you probably got some people excited about maybe becoming part of the Police Unity Tour, either as a rider or a support crew member. But also maybe people that just want to send a donation to help support such a worthy cause. Where can they go for more information?
Yes, we have all different social media opportunities for people. Our website is probably the clearest place to go to, www.policeunitytour.com, and that will direct every person to where they have to go. Also, we'll give you the opportunity to take a look at the other chapters if that is closer in your venue. New Jersey Chapter 1 may be, not able for you to make that ride there, but you wanted to go from the Virginia ride or, from the Philly ride, depending upon where we're coming from. So the best place to do that would be, on our website, but it'll also show you our other socials, whether it's YouTube, whether it's, Patreon, whether it happens to be all the different socials, Facebook, TikTok, all the different variables for any person to take a look. So we make sure that we hit all the age groups from 18 all the way up to, retirees and thereafter. So we have that ability to reach that. And I forgot, I'd be remiss to say something that really, and Craig, you had asked, what was something wonderful on a ride that really struck you? Watching generations of law enforcement officers. My closest friend, Harry Phillips, watching him and his son ride up the hill in New Jersey, and I could barely keep my eyes dry. His son became a cop there after him. They both were cops at the same time. And to watch the generation, go from father to son. And then to hear people to say, I have, my son and now my grandson. And to me, I had the opportunity of having my son before he was deployed. He's a Marine. And he came on the tour with us too. So the honor to see a generational thing, to hear the word 30 or to hear the numbers 29 or 30 years, something going on. And Craig, I got to say to you, a long time ago, we said, what makes this happen? And the best thing is it's believability. People honor and respect things when they believe in it. And that's when we see what crisis does it need to be around the world for everybody to get together. We don't need a crisis. All the things that we see around us is interpretations of different media people. To me, I stayed focused. Like I said, after 2015, my heart attack, I focus on not the negative. I focus on how to create the picture that I hope to see, am honored to see, and desire to see.
Hey, Pat,
You've done it, my friend.
This is what an amazing visit we've had with you. You've been very generous with your time and your wonderful stories. And I can't thank you enough on behalf of Heroes Behind the Badge for joining us. I also thank you for your service. And thanks for sharing all your amazing stories. There's a quote that I'd like to close with that I remember. I'm not sure who said it, but I think it's appropriate to describe you and your organization. The quote goes like this: "Those who cannot forget are as heroic as those who cannot remember." You are truly a hero behind the badge. You're making sure that we will never forget, and we thank you for that. Thanks for being our guest.
I appreciate that very much.
We appreciate you, my friend.
I got to add one thing. If we didn't have Craig Floyd with his push and tenacity for that memorial to be a reality, it still wouldn't be there.
Agreed. The memorial and the museum. Let's figure. Don't forget
Roger that.
Yeah.
But the biggest hurdle was that having that memorial. Originally, it was many, many years we had it without the museum, and willingly, I always say, it should have been there years ago. We're a living memorial. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that, there was a lot of opportunities to say we can't do it.
Yeah.
But there was always the one voice that was coming from, and that was Craig's, making sure that we did. So I want to say thank you for honoring my brothers and sisters, and thank you for being a part of our partnership. And to this very day, what you're trying to accomplish, and that is to be a part of something greater than us all. And that's to remember, respect, and honor those who honor and respect us. So thank you.
It couldn't be said any better, my friend. And again, your words and your actions do a lot to show us who you are. And we appreciate you and all you do.
My honor.
That's going to wind it up for this episode of Heroes Behind the Badge. We tell real stories about real cops. We expose the fake news about the police, and we give you the real truth. This podcast is brought to you by Citizens Behind the Badge, the leading voice of the American people in support of the men and women of law enforcement. Find out how you can join hundreds of thousands of Americans already lending their support to law enforcement. Citizensbehindthebadge.org. That's citizensbehindthebadge.org. And don't forget, hit follow, subscribe, and like on the app that you're listening to us on or watching us on. Make sure you'll be the first to know about our next episode of Heroes Behind the Badge. We'll be back soon with more episodes, more stories. Stay tuned for new episodes of Heroes Behind the Badge.